Good visual composition is essential to good visual communication.
Every time you look through the camcorder viewfinder, you should try to compose the best scene possible. Think before you shoot. Ask yourself, what am I trying to emphasize?
If you weren't born with an eye for composition, here are a few rules that'll help. Don't always center your subject. It's boring. The rule of thirds says that the eye tends to gravitate to a point 1/3 of the way from the left and right side of the screen and 1/3 from the top and bottom. By placing your subject at these intersections, they'll be at the strongest visual area of the screen. If your subjects are people, give them looking room. Imagine the screen as having visual weight. If the subject is looking right, decide how much looking room is needed to balance the picture. The same rule applies if it's a two-shot. Again, the rule of thirds can help.
Okay, go ahead.
If your subject is moving, allow more room. The viewer wants to know where your subject is going, not where it's been. Foreground detail can add dimension and depth to a scene. Background should be relevant, not distracting. Be especially careful of poles, trees, fences, etc. Good composition also depends on a willingness to bend in two areas, the mind and the knees. Think about and look at all of the possible angles on your subject before you shoot.
These are just some of the rules of good composition. Now set the rules aside and go experiment.
As you look into the viewfinder, ask yourself, is this important to what I'm shooting, and is it composed nicely? If the answer is yes, push the button. With today's home video tip, I'm Jerry Hattan, Channel 2 News.
A picture of a team that could wind up in the record books.
All right, here we go.
Each year, the 17 officers ride their bikes across several states, raising money for the Leukemia Society. But this will be a trip like no other.
But we're going to make it. It's going to be a good trip, I'm sure of that.
They honestly don't know what they're in for. There are going to be some peaks and there's going to be some valleys.
Officer Al Skozin has organized a trip the HPD bikers will never forget. He has plotted a course that will take the bikers west out of Houston. They'll take turns riding across Texas, then steer into the Rocky Mountains and climb the Continental Divide. They'll pedal 24 hours a day across 4 time zones, 8 states, and 2 provinces in Canada until they reach Anchorage, Alaska 12 days later.
Daddy's leaving now, sugar. Gonna give Daddy a kiss? Yeah, going to Alaska now.
Ahead of them is a 5,000-mile trip. As they pedal out of Houston, their spirits are as high as the Texas temperature.
You hope for a tailwind and a downhill.
You're more likely to find Captain Mark Curran behind a desk at the Northeast substation. But here he is on vacation, riding in a charity trip.
We've been doing it now, this is my 6th year, so once you get started, it's hard not to stop. But when you're on a bicycle, you feel every bump, every crack in the road.
The bikers will feel every bump and crack on the road between Houston and the Yukon. But all the bad roads are worth it.
Look at this scenery, God's country.
As awesome as the scenery is here, Al Skozin and fellow members of the police relay team rarely get a chance to stop and look at it.
Birds!
They have to keep moving.
We've had some tough roads.
Most of the trip is along a 2-lane mountain-studded road through British Columbia and the Yukon.
Only 7 more 100 miles to go. Up the hill.
If you've made it this far, 700 miles to go doesn't seem so bad. It's their mission that keeps them going.
I got 2 healthy children, and leukemia is the #1 killer in the country of children. And if we can eradicate that disease, we'll be a lot more happier families around.
The police officers divide into 4 teams and take turns riding alone or in groups 24 hours a day on the road north.
Luckily, we got great weather.
The officers hope that one day soon a ride like this won't be necessary.
Someday we're going to close in on that killer. We're only a couple years away that we're going to cure that disease.
Up ahead, the officers are about to pedal through the largest town they've seen in 1,100 miles of wilderness. On the banks of the Yukon River, Whitehorse, population 21,000, is the capital of the Yukon Territory. All the bikers line up for a parade through town. The people of the Yukon greet them warmly, and the bikers become instant celebrities.
I'm really quite honored to welcome you to the Yukon.
Well, that's a great looking shirt, eh?
The officers pay for their trip along the way by selling T-shirts.
I got left large, extra large and small.
All the money left over goes to leukemia research.
This is moose, and this is caribou.
Wherever their bikes take them, the Houston officers are warmly welcomed and well fed. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police throw a party for the Houston bikers, but not everyone gets to enjoy
I
it.
noticed that with this team, there always seems to be more uphill than downhill.
The bike has to keep moving to make it to Anchorage on time. The others at the party will have to catch up later.
All right, keep going, Diane. Who ever thought I'd be riding a bicycle in the Yukon?
Right now, it's Officer Diane Young's turn at climbing the mountain.
When I get to a mountain, and I've had a lot of them on this trail, it seems pretty tough getting up there. I just think about a leukemia patient at MD Anderson Hospital. Before you know it, I'm at the top and on my way downhill.
I didn't know cops had bicycles.
7-year-old Michael Collins of Pasadena is one of the kids the officers think about while on the road. Michael has leukemia.
There was bugs inside me that make me sick.
I kind of get choked up a little bit because I think of Mikey every time we speak about leukemia.
The bikers have been followed all the way to the Yukon by Houston police cars donated by the city. They are driven by Houston Fire Department paramedics who are also donating their vacation time.
It's all on my own. I give up my time for just to make things safe for them.
In the Yukon, the sight of a passing Houston police car does turn a lot of heads, mostly moose and elk. But people have noticed too. All along the Alaska Highway, people have opened their pocketbooks. One town in Canada gave the passing bikers a check for $3,000.
All along the way, we raised money. We sold more shirts and cow. We even had people stopping us as we were biking up here, giving us donations.
Dorothy Richardson of Alberta saw the police cars and the bikers outside her motel room and gave them a check for $200.
We thought it was somebody, some policeman coming up to get a prisoner or something up here.
Hey, girl.
It is well past midnight when Diane and the others in her group, who missed the big dinner in Whitehorse, hand off the bike to other officers and grab a bite to eat.
Hot dogs are coming.
The Cozy Cafe is staying open late because it's not every night that tired and hungry Houston cops pass through town. But up ahead, there are more mountains to climb on the long, bumpy road to Anchorage.
Oh, it's pretty, but these roads are terrible.
All right, you got 9 miles in. You're looking good.
Whenever he sees something strange coming down the road, Nolan Holman grabs his camera.
No, this is the first time a Houston police car has been up here.
Holman runs the last cafe in Canada the Houston police bikers will pass on the road to Alaska.
And there he heads towards Anchorage.
As Mr. Holman learned, the Houston bikers don't stay in one place very long. They have to keep moving. And so far, as they approach the Alaska border, they're right on schedule.
Everybody's wanting something to happen almost because it's such good luck so far.
Uh-oh.
If you're going to travel 5,000 miles from Houston to Anchorage, you've got to expect a flat tire on the support van somewhere along the way. But Kluane Lake is a beautiful place to be stuck.
We tried to call Houston, but they wouldn't send a tire truck out.
You got the time? You're timing me on this one?
Mike Deonte, a Canadian Mountie along for the ride, helps change the flat, and the bikers are back on the road.
You can't beat Canadian hospitality. Fantastic.
But the Houston bikers have to move on. They glide over the last Canadian hill and coast into the U.S. Customs Station, giving high fives to the inspectors.
Welcome to Alaska, gang. Yeah. I've always wanted to get to Alaska, and this is a good way of seeing a lot of it.
The police officers are still 500 miles from Anchorage, with nothing but the sky above and the road below, and plenty of time to think about why they're here.
Texas got big hearts down there, eh?
The officers all know someone who has died of leukemia. When the Canadian Mounties found out what the Houston cops were doing, they got on their bikes and joined in.
One of our Canadian boys, the Mounted Police Detachment, died of leukemia. He was a real fighter, so I guess in a way, my friend and I are here to support him. Hopefully he'll be a little proud of us. Got a beaver.
On the long road to Anchorage, the Houston bikers have pedaled past some sights they probably wouldn't have seen had they not been on a bike. The slower pace here allows them to look around and enjoy it all.
The bikers have seen some beautiful country, all right, but what they won't see here in Alaska is any nightlife. It's almost midnight now, and the sun is still shining.
When you're this close to the Arctic Circle, the sun never sets in the summer.
Beautiful night for this. It doesn't get any better than this.
Nice long downhill.
Yeah, amen.
Let's pick it up. Pick it up. Pick it up. Move it out. Let's go.
And be hot soon.
Pick it up.
Over the next mountain range lies the city of Anchorage and the end of a 5,000-mile trip.
I'm in Anchorage, Alaska.
Yeah, baby. All the way from Houston, Texas. 12 days and 6 hours.
Anchorage police escort the Houston bikers to a waiting crowd of family and friends who've flown up to celebrate the end of an historic trip.
Welcome.
And I'll give you a key to the city that won't open much.
But the $170,000 raised by the bikers on this trip will open doors to leukemia research. In 12 days, the Houston police officers have proven that almost anything is possible.
12 days? I never have ridden my bike for 12 days.
Doctors are closing in on a cure for Michael, thanks in part from the money raised on this trip. And for the bikers, that's like finding a pot of gold.
We made it, buddy. They said it couldn't be done, and we did it.